Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Inside Austin's Agenda. I'm your host, Grace Reeder, and today I am joined by Mayor Pro Tem Vanessa Fuentes. We were just talking before the show that even my very intelligent boyfriend asked me this morning what a mayor pro tem is, and so I'm going to throw you this curveball question right out the gate. Just sort of first explain for folks who don't know what that is.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I'm just really proud to have earned the confidence of my colleagues to be named Mayor Pro Tem. It is an honorary title that I get to have for the year where I serve as Mayor Pro Tem for the entire city of Austin. And when the mayor is off the dais or if he's unavailable to preside over a meeting, I will step in and be kind of like the vice mayor. And it also means I've gotten a lot more invitations to connect with community members all throughout the city. So it's a great way for me to engage with neighborhoods all across Austin.
For you personally, it seems like you have really taken that title and hit the ground running and are very, very busy. For you personally, kind of how do you take that title to change your role, and what kind of extra responsibilities have you taken on?
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot, especially to be mayor pro tem this year. We have a change in administration. We have the Texas legislature in town just up the street from City Hall. So I know just how important it is for me to engage with our community, to ensure that I have a close eye on what's happening at the federal government and at the state level. But ultimately, I am having some fun. There's some fun that comes along with it. So certainly I love being able to talk to different groups across town.
So let's jump a little bit into, you just mentioned state and federal, and last time we had you on KXAN on our midday show, we had you talk a little bit and answer our questions, frankly, about at the local level how locally we were going to respond to what's happening federally with immigration changes. And you talked about that. And first, if you could remind folks kind of where the city of Austin stands, and specifically with our police department.
Yeah, well, what we know with ICE activity in the area, to me, was really important just to emphasize what our chief of police mentioned, is that our local police officers are not responsible for federal civil immigration. And that was an important message for me to share out. And it's one that I continue to talk about because there's a lot of fear right now in our immigrant community. Stress levels are high and there's tremendous amount of anxiety. So I think first and foremost, just clearing up, where this is coming from and who's responsible for it is important.
That clip got picked up and got shared on social media and went, I'm not social media savvy, but I would say viral. And so can you talk a little bit about how you're navigating both addressing the concerns we have, the community has, but also, at this time that's really politically fueled, trying to kind of walk that line? How are you balancing that?
Yeah, I want to be very careful with what I say and how I say it. I know just how easy it is for certain individuals, bad actors, to politicize what I'm saying when really what I'm trying to do is provide assurances to our community and really look out for the safety of everyone who lives in this city. And that is important right now, especially with all the confusion and chaos that we're seeing coming down from at the federal level. So it's important for me to speak on these matters.
One thing that we're also seeing is we saw specifically Monday night, we saw protests. We're seeing protests today about this issue, and that is something that the police department will have to respond to. Are you all having any conversations sort of just about their role in that enforcement?
Oh yes, we receive updates when our police department is involved and is responding to activity, and so certainly keeping top of mind, having conversations with our police chief as well as with city executives.
And we do want to welcome our viewers who just joined us from our 4 o'clock newscast. You're watching Inside Austin's Agenda. I've got Mayor Pro Tem Vanessa Fuentes here. Let's move on to talking a little bit about air travel. That is obviously really top of mind. And for folks who don't know, the airport is in your district. What kind of conversations are happening locally about what can be controlled here?
Yes, well, I think we were all horrified to see and to hear about the incident that happened just outside of DC. And so air travel and air safety is top of mind for a lot of policymakers throughout the nation. And one thing is clear is that we need more air traffic controllers. And our air traffic controllers are regulated and administered by the federal level through the Federal Aviation Administration. And so we really want to ensure that we are and have been continuing to raise the flag to tell FAA, please properly, sufficiently staff our air traffic control. That is important. But here locally, I brought forward an item that put together a virtual on-the-ground ramp control system that allowed us at the local level and at the ground level to continue to provide safety for our airport, for our passengers, and for our workers.
think a lot of people think that you can just call up federal workers and that things just happen overnight. But can you kind of talk through the process of what pushing the FAA and pushing the federal government on those air traffic controllers really looks like at the city level?
Yes, we've been fortunate to have Congressman Lloyd Doggett, who has been also raising the flag and have sent letters to the FAA. Our airport leader has also sent letters to FAA. I've personally called the FAA to ask for a meeting and to talk about this issue, and working in tandem with our congressional delegation, our congressional partners, we continue to ask for adequate and sufficient staffing levels. But in the midst of that, it's important for us to continue to do what we can at the local level. And so bringing forward policies like the virtual on-ramp control system are important.
One of the other things that we've seen play out nationally, we saw massive wildfires in Los Angeles, and we heard from firefighters here from the Firefighters Association about some parallels to the city of Austin and our potential to have catastrophic fires here. I know that you all had some items on your agenda last week, including making sure that brush is cleared out in parks. But can you talk a little bit about is that top of mind? Is that something that the city is going to be working on?
Oh, absolutely. Austin is in the top 5 for wildfire risk, and this is top of mind for me and my colleagues. We certainly understand the impacts of having worsening and more severe climate events happening, and certainly what happened in LA really put a lot of individuals on notice, and certainly here in Austin, about what more can we do to prevent wildfires. And so we passed a number of items just last week that took a look at our parkland. We have thousands of acres of parkland throughout the city, so we wanted to do some brush cleanup and mitigate the fuel that's available for wildfires to spread. And so we'll continue to look at other policies to ensure that we are preparing our community and mitigating this type of disaster from happening.
How frequently are you all broaching that topic and talking to firefighters, the Firefighters Association, or other communities who are also working through these issues as we experience climate change?
Sure. Well, we passed the climate equity plan a couple years ago now. And so with that plan, we receive quarterly updates. So it is something that we are routinely provided with information on.
Let's move on to actions that you all took overall as a body last week. It was your first council meeting of the year, 3 new members on the dais. Your first as mayor pro tem this year. Talk a little bit about some of the items that really jumped out to you.
Well, the big item for me as chair of the Public Health Committee, it was around homelessness and making sure that homelessness is one of the top budget priorities coming this cycle. This is important for us because we do have a federal cliff with the American Rescue Act relief dollars. So essentially, we're going to have a lot less federal funding available for us to properly fund our homelessness response system. And so what my item did was take a look at how can we adequately invest in our homelessness response system. So that means more emergency shelter, more permanent supportive housing, as well as more investments in prevention and rapid rehousing.
This is something I hear all the time as I do these stories, as people say, how is the city going to spend X amount of dollars on this one thing? But you all really emphasized in that this was a community effort. Can you talk about the partners that are needed? Echo brought forward a dollar amount, and I think people think that might be simply a City of Austin number.
That's right. I mean, we cannot go through this alone and go at it alone. We have to have our partners there. So it was really important for me. And in fact, we had a gathering of leaders from Travis County, from Central Health, from Integral Care, which is our mental health authority, as well as leaders from the philanthropic sector and people with individual lived experience with homelessness. And so it was important for everyone to acknowledge that we all have a role to play in ensuring that we have a compassionate and robust homelessness response system. And understanding that the need and the scale that we have here in Austin, it cannot be, the city just can't fund it alone. And today we had a public health committee meeting, and we continue to receive updates on the permanent supportive housing piece. So it's certainly something that we will continue to talk about.
Echo put out a report that you all had kind of used as a guide for that item, and the number that they threw out was $350 million over the course of 10 years. Obviously, not just the city, but just as a community. But do you think that is reasonable, something that we can achieve as a community between Travis County, the city, philanthropic partners, etc.?
It's certainly a big goal, and it's going to take all of us. And right now we're having those conversations of what our individual pieces will look like. But what gives me a lot of hope and optimism for the future is knowing that we're all committed. And so we'll be figuring out those details in the coming months.
So, well, is there anything moving forward that you're really looking forward to, or that you're hoping that people will be paying a lot of attention to on the dais?
So just yesterday, we had a public hearing on short-term rentals. That's another topic that is top of mind for Austinites. And just want folks to know that we will have another public hearing later this month. And we're going to take a look at adopting some rules around short-term rentals and ensuring that we can bring more of them into compliance. We have hundreds of short-term rentals that are not currently licensed, and that has an impact on our neighborhoods and on our community. One thing that comes from bringing more short-term rentals into compliance is the collection of more local hotel tax dollars, and those hotel tax dollars will go towards cultural arts, will go towards historic preservation projects. So really, it'll be very helpful for our community for us to be able to bring these rules online.
I listened into that meeting yesterday, and it sounds like the short-term rental companies in our area and the major ones have been really already working with the city on those rules to make them work for them too. Who are you hoping to hear from, and do you expect any speed bumps moving forward?
Yeah, what we know is that we want to make sure that we've taken the time to get it right. And like just what you said, there have been ongoing conversations. There was a number of litigation on this matter, a number of cases on this matter that kind of outlines what a city can do. We can't do just a blanket prohibition on short-term rentals. And we wouldn't want to do that. I mean, there are certainly a lot of Austinites who use short-term rentals as supplementary income, as a way to be able to afford to live in Austin. So I've been really appreciative of the City of Austin's process to ensure that we have diverse stakeholders involved and that we're getting everyone's perspectives as part of this process.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem, at the end, I always ask folks if they have any news that they want to drop, if there's anything else that they want to say or add. So this is your opportunity if there's anything else you'd like to say.
I would just say I'm really having a great time serving as Mayor Pro Tem, and tomorrow I'll be joining colleagues in my district. We're having a little community launch effort. We're going to be talking about the new service that the Austin Resource Recovery has, which is on-demand bulk pickup, which is huge for folks who ever tried to get rid of old furniture, appliances, and you missed your bulk collection date. You can now just call up the city and we'll come pick it up. So I think that's some really great news for folks to know about.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time. Everyone, this was Mayor Pro Tem Vanessa Fuentes. I am not going to call you City Council member. I've been saying that in my head all day. It's Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate it. As a reminder for everybody that we've got Inside Austin's Agenda that airs every other week on Wednesdays in the afternoons. Thank you, everyone, for joining.